welcome Your Excellency in Ujalo Online and Ujalo Radio. Nepal is having election tomorrow, and we have very few hours or some minutes. Maybe people listen your interview. And what are most important thing you think Nepali voters should consider in the tomorrow's election?
Well, I think the fact that you should vote is the first thing. I think people should go out and exercise their right to vote. I think that they should then look for which party offers them the best features for all the populations of Nepal. I think that accommodates and respects the diversity that takes place, that is present here in Nepal, and at the same time does it based on principles of transparency and accountability. So the vote tomorrow is an opportunity for people to decide who they think is best suits the interests of Nepal and the ones of their own interests themselves.
This time we are having significant number of the youth voters. They are voting first time, and also Ian has worked with like a ex-combatant and combatant. They are also participating in the first time. Do you have any message for them who are voting first time in Nepal?
Well, I think it's very important that anybody who has the ability to vote and the right to vote should exercise that right. In any country, having the right to vote is a very hard-won battle. And if people are doing it for the first time, I think they have to take the responsibility of deciding who they think best suits their views, who will take their views ahead and make progress the way they see it. And I think the elections are only one step in the direction that Nepal is going. And hopefully after the elections we then start addressing people's concerns, which are normal concerns of the economy, normal concerns of the ability to find jobs and good education and good services. So the election is not an end in itself, it should be the start of something bigger, and so people should recognise that.
So there are lots of things that is going on underway to preparation of the election. One of the thing is the strike and bandhas called by the parties who do not believe in this type of exercise. And your previous statement became also a little bit controversial. Do you want to clarify on them?
Well, I mean, the statement was made on behalf of the ambassador international community here, and what the purpose of that statement was to say that people who are participating in the election should be allowed to do so. Parties, people who choose not to participate in the elections, as long as they do it peacefully, that's not undemocratic. I think that where it's picked up was we were seen as being making criticism of these undemocratic practices. People who don't interfere with other people's right to exercise their voting, their principles, people who peacefully boycott or peacefully demonstrate, I think that is part of a democratic process, a choice that people make. But I think that using violence and the threats of violence to intimidate or prevent people from exercising their democratic right, I think that's undemocratic. But peaceful boycotting is something different.
Tomorrow we are having election, and still the bandha is going on, and there are lots of obstacles the election commission is finding, and also intimidation. Some of the wrongdoing on the code of conduct who the party and candidate are contesting. Do you think in these circumstances the election will be free, fair, and?
Well, I think I'm encouraged at the atmosphere here. I mean, there have been bunds and there have been strikes, but I think we can see that it hasn't interfered so much. There have been incidents, but from what I've been told, that the incidents in terms of violence and intimidation and fatalities are much less than 2008. And so one would say that there is a spirit and there is a hope that there will be an open competition. There is a hope that people will have the chance to voice their choices freely, and people will be able to undergo and undertake their democratic rights free from violence and intimidation. And that is what we would expect. It seems that will be the case. I mean, I think there's enough election observers here, both national and international. I think the Code of Conduct, the security forces have shown enough discipline and restraint to allow that to take place. So one would hope, as we've seen the trend over the last 24, 48 hours, the numbers of incidents have reduced.
Do you want to say anything who are trying to stop the election?
I mean, I think that what we
any message for the parties
my message is that
on behalf of the international community you represent.
I can't speak on behalf of the international community. I speak on behalf of the UN. And what the UN hopes for is that people get the chance to vote. People be allowed to use their vote to actually bring about the changes they're looking for in Nepal. However, if there are certain parties who wish not to take part in the elections, that's their choice. However, I would say that beyond the elections, there's a post-election world which looks at some of the bigger issues which I think have to be addressed: local elections, constitution drafting, the transitional justice issues. And I think not just parties but stakeholders, civil society have to be engaged in those processes. And that's something that we must start some sort of dialogue for national consensus after the election process is over.
What are the role UN is playing to make this election happen? Because I understand UN is very much engaged in this election process.
Yeah. Well, we see this as very much a government-led process. Anything the international community and the UN does is to support the government in that regard. Specifically, the UN, with some of its donor partners, are providing support technically to the Electoral Commission, and that's done in many different ways, from procurement to the supply of paper and materials, printing materials, at the same time machinery. But then on the other hand, we have our work in terms of working with other parts of the international community to support the election process, to encourage this election to take place, because I think it's something that we all want to take place. Based on the election, we can then start to move forward, as well as the UN specifically on technical support to the actual Electoral Commission. We also have support that we do in the terms of, we've got 10 international advisors, 2 of which were in each of the 5 regions in Nepal. And they're there to work with the Electoral Commission and the CDOs and other parts of the government structures to ensure that these elections are run according to international and other standards. And that's where we are. And the electoral observers come in here and review the code of conduct and the way that the system works. And then that's part of our broader support to the government and to the specific elections.
As all of the people understand, UN is supporting lots of development activities in Nepal, and tomorrow people are electing next government as well as the Constituent Assembly and Parliament. And do you have any special message for those to whom you are working with directly and indirectly?
Well, as we said, that this is for elections for the people of Nepal to create a government for Nepal, and we as the international community, we as the UN are here to support that led process. And what we are looking for is opportunities to further engage with the government, further engage with different parts, and hopefully at one point in time the local elections will take place and we have a local structure, and then we can build into that the transparency, accountability that's required. And I think what we're looking for is for Nepal to reach its development goals, and we are the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, an indication that Nepal is going in the right direction. However, there have to be much more deeper, and I think we have to strengthen our engagement and strengthen our possibilities to bring about change in people's lives and livelihoods in Nepal. And there has to be a much more equitable spread of development, because I think there's an inequity here that goes on in terms of, in some of the more remote areas, people haven't been touched as much by development as they should have. And I think it's our task as the international community and the UN to make sure that people do feel the benefit of international assistance and support to Nepal.
Thank you very much.
Okay.